Good afternoon, everyone. This is August 20th, 2020. It is a hearing of the Legislative Oversight Committee regarding the VTRS project. The legislature has been tasked with holding quarterly committee hearings on this issue. And that, of course, is the purpose of the hearing today. I will say we did get kind of sidetracked a little bit with the COVID crisis, and so we're a little bit behind. But now with this meeting, we will catch up and go through what the current status of this project is. For those who have just joined, we're going to have an update from the Office of Legislative Auditor. We will then hear from Commissioner Harrington from DPS and any designate folks from DPS that wish to talk that Commissioner Harrington wants to invite forward. Then we'll have Mr. King. He is with us this afternoon to kind of give us a wrap up. Anyone that wishes to speak, if you would bring that to my attention by using the raised hand, that would be helpful. And with that, I think Chairman Hornstein, do you have any opening comments? Otherwise, I think we'll get started.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to everyone for attending this afternoon's meeting. I just wanted to also echo Chair Newman's comments here. When we talked about holding this meeting today, I got a couple of comments. Well, what's wrong? Is something wrong? And why are you doing this hearing? And oftentimes we do oversight hearings because we know we need to get information or there is some kind of issue that the legislature needs to correct. But as Chair Newman said, my understanding, and we'll hear some more now, is that things are going very well. And so we're not doing this hearing out of any kind of need to hold anyone's feet to the fire, as it were, but to get the update as is required by law. We have a strong oversight function here at the legislature, and in the bipartisan legislation that established the VTRS Oversight Committee, we are required to have periodic meetings in law, and so this is that required meeting. And again, we'll hear from our agency friends, but my understanding is things are going well. And if I could just, Mr. Chair, tell a very quick story just based on my experience. I needed to update my driver's license, and I went online, and it took about 5 minutes, and 2 weeks later I had my license in hand through the mail. I don't even think that would have been the case in the pre-COVID days. So from that small anecdote, it looks like things are going quite well, and I want to thank before we start, Commissioner Harrington, Deputy Commissioner O'Hearn, and Director Corey for their hard work, their good work on this transition. And we're anxious to hear more about it. So thank you. With that, Mr. Chair, we'll get started.
Thank you, Chair Hornstein. And my understanding is we're going to go first with the Office of Legislative Auditor. I've got Judy Randall, I believe, is on, as is Mark Matheson. Ms. Randall, do you wish to go first?
Sure. Thank you, Senator Newman, and thank you, Senator Newman and members. For the record, my name is Judy Randall. I'm the Deputy Legislative Auditor for OLA's for the Office of the Legislative Auditor. Really, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Matheson, who is our IT auditor. But I will just give you the bottom line, which is that so far we have not found any showstoppers in terms of rolling out this system. So I think the preliminary comments are correct and that things seem to be going pretty well. We do have some comments that we'd like to talk with you about. And I also want to draw your attention to the fact that we will be releasing another quarterly report in September. September 10th is what we're shooting for. So while we can't get into the details of what we're finding in that report in this hearing, we did dig deeper in some areas, and we'll be happy to talk further with you about those findings and some concerns in September. But for now, Mr. Matheson is going to talk about our reviews that took place in March and June. So if I could turn to Mr. Matheson now. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. Mr. Matheson.
Senator. For the record, my name is Mark Matheson. I am the Information Technology Audit Director with the Office of the Legislative Auditors, and I'm here today, as Ms. Randall indicated, to provide an overview of the review reports that we have issued to date. We do have a presentation that we can pull up and try to run through Zoom here. It was provided as a link on the site, as is our reports should be available there as well. And if those reports are necessary for anybody, our office would be glad to make those available in either hard or electronic copies as well. So with that, we'll try to do a presentation. And are people able to see that?
I can tell you that I can. Anyone on that cannot see it, please say something. Otherwise, please proceed, Mr. Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we mentioned, we do, as the law does require, our office does issue quarterly reports. To date, we have issued 3 quarterly reports. One that was due out in December of 2019, and a report that was also issued in March 2020, and then our most recent report was in June 2020. As Ms. Randall indicated, we do have another report that is in progress that will be out in September 2020, and those reports focus on 4 core areas. First, what is the overall project status and the deliverables? Are they, as well as the budget that goes along with that? Also, we take a look and review stakeholder engagement. Is the project review working with its stakeholders and providing feedback and getting communicating with those folks? And we also conduct a review on the steps necessary to take down the old systems or decommissioning those legacy systems. And finally, for each and every one of those areas, we look at any concerns or risks that exist there or somewhere else within the environment that may impact the project. As a refresher, this project is really broken down into 2 core milestones. The first one is with the major rollout of the FAST system that will hopefully take place and is targeted to take place on November 16th of 2020, probably less than almost 90 days now. And with that rollout, we'll be seeing a major replacement of the vehicle and title registration modules, many of those found in MNLARS today. In addition, you'll see additional components in system functionality that doesn't exist in MNLARS, such as a dealer management functionality. The second milestone for this project is due out in October 1 of 2021. And with those modules, you'll see a replacement of many of the applications that are used to support the trucking industry for international fuel taxes and international registrations plans. Sometimes this is referred to as prorate. Each and every one of these projects and these milestones is broken down by the agency and the FAST project managers into smaller, manageable components. And so as we did our review, one thing we're looking for is how successful is the group in meeting and maintaining those smaller projects and meeting those deadlines. As we said at the beginning of this project, we are finding that they are meeting many of those deliverables, and so that provides us with some assurance that we'll be meeting the final target date. An overview of the project budget appropriated for this project was approximately $52.7 million. As of our review at the end of May, the agency is forecasted to be under budget for this project. At that time, they had spent roughly $13.5 million and had expected to see disbursements of another $6.5 million coming out in June. Those were payments that were defined through the contract with our vendor and based on completing certain phases, as we mentioned it earlier. One thing we had noted within our review, maybe contributing to the being under budget, As we got into May with only 1 month remaining, we had found that the agency had only spent 1.3% of its fiscal year 20 technology budget. So they had budgeted for $1.9 million to be spent in this category, but due to utilizing some savings and using some of the existing infrastructure that existed within the driver's system, they were able to save some money in that functionality. We did, however, identify that right now there was a very minimal information defining what's going to be spent in fiscal year 2022, as this appropriation goes through June 30th of 2022 and covers kind of that latter part of the project. So we ultimately encourage that the agency start to revisit its technology budget and really start to develop more of those detailed plans as 2022 would soon be approaching. Overall, our conclusions, as we mentioned, we think that the project remains on track. And despite any COVID-19 implications and the havoc that was presented with that, and as we mentioned, they're currently under budget. We do find that DPS continues to foster stakeholder input, and those decommissioning plans do now exist and have some detailed elements such that they can start to execute upon that once we take the system down. And while it's hard to actually predict that on November 16th, we're going to have a successful deployment, in general, we're finding very minor concerns and very few risks that really are being addressed throughout. Ultimately, I think when we ask the agency for the elements and seeing where we are with things, they deliver. They're fine. They're completing the necessary steps that we're expecting. Briefly go over some of the risks that we had reported within our project reviews and provide you with the status of where those sit today. Our first risk was related to new legislative requirements that could impact that project timeline or budget. As you recall, we first presented this in our December 19 report, and we also repeated it in March 2020. This risk really stems from the possibility of legislative changes in how we could create, how we would calculate registration taxes. And there were some concerns on if self-service options would increase the scope of this project. By the time we released our June 2020 report, we'd really found after session that the laws that were implemented and the methodology for which Minnesota now creates its registration taxes, we were finding that that did not create undue burden to the project itself. We also found that self-service options, there was no self-service options that were mandated. And to a certain extent, legislative requirements on Real ID that were extended through October 2021 really kind of helped the project along. Obviously, with legislative changes, it's something that we will continue to look at throughout and address as the project moves forward. We presented a risk on the migrating of data into the new system as the risk that was presented both in our December reports, and it was repeated again in March and June of 2020. This is not necessarily the implications of the agency not doing enough, but when you look at moving data from one large application into another, there's always some inherent risks to that. And I think as we've mentioned, our office has identified some known data integrity issues throughout. And while the agency and the vendor have a methodology for testing and migrating this data, at the time of our release, they had only tested a small amount of data. So we really weren't sure how successful some of their work would be. We did note in our June report, though, however, that recent changes in the law now allows for some data error corrections. So in the past sessions, there was some changes known to the hold harmless provisions. So if you recall, some of the data errors that we had found was the infamous Ford F-150 that was new with a base value of $1. Finding those types of errors in the system now, the law provides the tools necessary to the agency to make some changes in that area. So I'd say risks in this area are definitely improving. As we looked at decommissioning plans early on in the project, we found that the information found in those plans was lacking. However, and we repeated that again in our March 2020 report. In general, those weren't too large of concerns because the decommissioning happens after the system's gone live and you take that down. Nevertheless, it's good to start having some sort of plan and working towards those details. When we got to our June report, we'd found that the agency was actually had some detailed tasks in place and were tracking hours and have the ability to manage those tasks throughout. Obviously, I think there's going to be some more work as the system comes about, but at least the fundamental pieces are there today. In March, we introduced a new risk, the risk of staffing resources, and you might consider the possibility of how those resources are used and will they be tugged from multiple priorities throughout, such that if staff aren't working on this project, are they working on other projects or are they working on operational tasks? One project that potentially raised some risk is that in June, we had identified that the credit card terminals that are used by DPS and deputy registers, those terminals that are used, the vendor who supplies those, they announced that they will no longer support that model coming effective April of 2021. Thus, if the state wants to remain compliant with payment card industry security standards or PCI security standards, they would have to embark on a project to replace those. Our concern was that if similar staff and technology folks and deputy register resources also had to take on this task, would it potentially put strain on the VTRS implementation? Finally, when we look at processing of transactions, whether it be from the deputy registrars or public safety personnel, there was overall concern on what the volume of transactions that might be in the system at the time. One key thing is in March, you might recall, our big focus was on Real ID. With the big push to have Real ID effective originally in October of 2020, there was big concern on the volume and the necessity to process a lot of those transactions. Would deputy registers and license agents be overwhelmed with the number of people coming in close at the time when they're supposed to be doing training and learning the new application? And would DVS be able to handle all that extra volume as well too? That risk changed somewhat when the federal government extended the deadline and moved that deadline out until October 2021. In addition, during special session, there was some legislative appropriations of $2.4 million that was given through January of 2021 to help provide some temporary staff, which would help relieve this stress. Now, at our June report, we were still in some government in a statewide shutdown, the governor's stay-at-home orders. And so we really weren't sure what impact would happen when we opened the doors and folks would start coming back into the environments to process that. So there are still some unknown risks that we do see with the Real ID and what that'll have on the project. But today I think that has, with the extension of that deadline, that has changed drastically on what impact that has. We also looked at the vehicle title work in progress. So these are titles and registrations that were, as we get close to the cutover date and migrate to a new application, we want to have a very minimal amount of work in progress that started in the MNLARS applications and have to be finished somewhere, whether it be in the MNLARS application or be finished in the VTRS. So you want to keep that work minimal. The agency ultimately took advantage of shutdowns in operations in May and brought their work in progress and backlog of titles down from 100,000 down to a low amount of 7,500. However, with with the shutdown and the stay-at-home orders in place, there was a backlog of some transactions that would be kind of flooding into DVS once we opened up the doors, and there would be a lot of transactions coming. So our recommendations to the agency was that this would be something that we would definitely they would want to kind of keep a grasp on and make sure that their work in progress was well managed. Again, this will be something we'll revisit throughout our overall project. As Ms. Randall mentioned, we do have a report set to be released on September 10th, and that will cover these 4 areas. And with all those core risks, we are just really finding these as minor concerns. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd open it up to any questions, or if you want to hear from the agency, we'll stay here and can respond after.
Thank you, Mr. Matheson. I do have one question that would relate to your statement that there's very little information regarding the fiscal year 2022 budget. What type of information would you expect to see at this point regarding the 2022 budget?
With our project, so the fiscal year 2022 starts on July 1st of 2021. So any work that would be conducted between July 1 and the rollout date of the second phase of the project, where we're implementing the project of the trucker industry modules. So we would anticipate seeing any costs associated with minute staff that will be working on that, with public safety staff, and with the contractor. The contract actually does have terms with dates that defined certain dollar amounts that have to be paid out after July 1st. So having a budget that would reflect those categories should be something that we would anticipate the agency has set aside some of their budget money to make sure that they have incurred cost, or that they have funds to cover those expenses.
But I would assume that at least for the long term, what you'd like to see would be the amount of money and the items that they have planned for, that they have set aside for in the long term. Would that be correct?
Correct. So we want to make sure that when we spend money, that it's something that is expected and not just because we have money available.
Okay. That's all the questions that I have of Mr. Matheson. Are there any other members who wish to present a question? I'm not seeing any, and I'm getting no indication from from staff, I should say. So with that, thank you very much, Mr. Matheson, for your report. And Ms. Randall, thank you very, very much. If you wouldn't mind hanging around if you're able, just to answer any questions that might come up in the before the end of the hearing, that would be fine. But thank you very much for your reports.
Thank you.
Next up would be Commissioner Harrington. Welcome, Commissioner. I assume you've got some folks that you maybe want to turn this over to, but at this point I'll recognize you and you may proceed.
Senator Newman, thank you very much. And Representative Hornstein and co-chairs, I want to thank you both for hosting this meeting. And yes, Tony Anderson will be providing the majority of the details on the VTRS project, and he has a PowerPoint. I just have a few opening comments before that. I want to note that the Department of Public Safety has been working through many of the challenges that the OLA mentioned, not the least of which includes COVID, but also the murder of George Floyd and the protests related to that, and a wide variety of other social issues has also impacted our ability to get things done. Many people would think, well, DVS wouldn't have been involved in that, but as Town Square has been the site of several protests, that has certainly impacted our ability to get work done. And COVID required us to revamp how Town Square and all of the different testing sites and how we do driver's license testing, for example, and demand for driver's license testing all over the state has come up. In addition, just in general, we're seeing it's going to be a tough year on the roads this year. We're already at 229 fatals this year, which is 15 more than last year, which is, I think, surprising to many people as we think about transportation issues, because the volume of motor vehicle travel has been down. At some point during this year, it was down 70%. I want you to know that I'm very, very proud of the DVS, the Fast Minute team, and the other assorted folks that are part of that, because despite COVID and despite the protests and despite everything else, they have not taken their eye off the prize. They have regularly continued to meet virtually because of COVID, but they meet on a regular basis. I checked in on those meetings. I can tell you that we have an active and a lively and a robust discussion going on there. And I want you to know that Rick King continues to provide his guidance, and I regularly see him on the VTRS meetings, adding his input and his guidance to what we're moving forward on. Having said that, there have been some challenges. One of the challenges is the project team is now working 100% remotely. Everybody's doing telework. Nobody's actually in the same room anymore. And that's certainly not the way, I think probably when you and I talked about this project early in my term as the commissioner, that wasn't how I envisioned. I envisioned a big room with lots of computers and lots of people in the room sharing information and throwing things across the room to each other. And that has not happened. But despite the fact that has not happened, we are still on task and we are still on time and we're still working within our budget. One of the sidebars to that was training. We would expect to have had big training blocks. In fact, we were looking at community colleges and community centers all over the state where we could host the training, because in-person training was the model that we had worked on in the past. COVID took us out of that in-person training. We now have a distance model of training. And I will tell you that the deputy registers who we've talked to regularly throughout this process have been, I'd say, overwhelmingly positive about the training. They like the fact that they have access to it at any time, so that it doesn't have to impact their work days anymore. It can be done at any time. And frankly, because we're going to bring on new staff and they're bringing on new staff, having the training in the can allows us to train new people with the same training that the standard fares have had all along. So I think the training modules are really a very good creation. It was not the design, wasn't the original way we were going to do this, but I think we've learned that this is a model that does work for us. In addition to that, we've been working as partners in partnerships with the drivers, the DRs, the auto dealers, and we have worked out a communications plan that we're going to roll out here shortly, because we want to make sure that all the auto dealers are also actively engaged in the training and in the VTRS and in getting into the new system. Having said all that, I can tell you that the project is on track for our November 16th, 2020 rollout date. I have no doubts that we are going to be on time and that we will have this thing fully tested and ready to go by our date. I will mention a couple other issues just as parentheticals. One was brought up in last year's hearings, which was the whole issue on driver's license testing. We had a lot of concerns about backlogs on driver's license testing. Assistant Commissioner Lino and Emma Corey put together a really good plan on adding weekends and nights to the project. We were starting to make progress, and we were planning to do even more of that this year. COVID took us out of that frame of reference.
Commissioner, if I could interrupt for a moment.
Sure.
For about a minute, you blanked out, and I don't think anybody heard anything you had to say. Could you back up with your?
Can you tell me where the last thing you heard was? Because you were still on the screen. Everybody was still on the screen for me. So.
Because Sam could hear. Yeah.
I guess others did hear you. It's my signal apparently. So go ahead, proceed, Commissioner.
Okay. Well, I will keep this because I'm coming up to the end of my comment, which is one of the things that we've had to do because of because of COVID and because of all the other work is we had to do some consolidation around driver's license testing. Once again, wasn't the way we were planning to do things, but we've had a wonderful result of that. Emma's team at DVS is now doing 700 Class D tests a day, which compares really favorably to the 550 tests a day we were doing this time last year. We are ahead of schedule. We have caught up the 18,000 backlog that we had from when we were in complete shutdown. And we now are rolling out an online knowledge testing project that will allow high schools and driver's ed programs to be able to do online testing. We believe that will save 300,000 plus visits to driver's license stations, once again, helping us on the COVID side, but also making sure that the needs of Minnesotans to get their driver's tests are met and met well. The last thing I'll mention was mentioned by the OLA, which is Real ID. As he mentioned, the extension of the date to 10/1 of 2021 was welcome, because we were frankly really worried about how we were going to get all of the Minnesotans that didn't have Real ID to get their Real ID. So we were really happy to see that. We had additional funding that was given to us so that we could help work on that if we got beyond a 45-day turnaround on Real ID. For quite a while, catching up our backlog, we were not at that point. We are now at a point where we're above that 45-day turnaround on Real ID. And so we are exercising the option of bringing in some additional attempts to try and make sure that we can reduce that turnaround number substantially as soon as possible. One thing I will note is that the deadline, and we certainly understood this because when we were given the funding, it was under the assumption that we were going to have Real ID up and running by this fall. But with it now being extended to fall of 2021, the deadline for using those funds, which I believe is January of this year, we believe it may be necessary for that to be extended because we will be continuing to do the work on Real ID well beyond the end of this year as we now set up for a 2021 October deadline for Real ID. That concludes my comments unless there are questions. And if there are none, I would then turn it over to Tony Anderson, who has been the project lead on this, who has more detailed information about how the project is going.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are you, Commissioner, going to be able to stay on to the end of the meeting?
That is my intention, sir.
All right, very good. Then we'll hold any questions for the Commissioner until after Mr. Anderson's presentation. And I would mention for members, I don't know if all of you have got the agenda in front of you, but Ms. Corey is on the line in order to answer any questions, as is Assistant Commissioner Lanai. I believe Ken Buna is on, as is John Eichen from Minute. So just in case folks have any questions of those. With that, Mr. Anderson.
Great, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, thank you. For the record, my name is Tony Anderson, and I'm the program director with DVS working on the VTRS project. I am pleased to say that the project is on track for a successful release here on November 16th. This is directly tied to the partnership we have with FAST, as they have a proven motor vehicle solution, and the participation from deputy registrars and the auto dealers associations. I'll go through a presentation that the committee members have received and is now displayed on the screen. Jordan, can you proceed to the next slide, please?
Let him know that.
All right. This afternoon, we are going to be talking about the phases of the project, as well as how the team has responded to the COVID-19 pandemic, any customization that has occurred, the engagement of deputy registrars and auto dealers association, the risk log for the project, and the payment schedule. I'll also provide an update on FastDS and the work that has occurred. And of course, if there are any questions about the project, I'm happy to answer any. The project's broken down into two phases, as Mr. Matheson mentioned during his presentation. First phase is the replacing of the title and registration functions, the dealer management, fleet management, document managing, as well as permits. The new system, like we've mentioned, will be going live on November 16th. We're going to start the cutover process on Veterans Day, Wednesday, November 11th. From November 11th to Sunday, November 15th, offices will be closed to the public for title and registration transactions, as well as driver's license transactions. Our goal is to have a soft launch with some deputy registrars on either Friday or Saturday during that cutover weekend to ensure the system is working prior to Monday the 16th. Phase 2 of the project replaces the prorate functions with IFTA and IRP, and that's scheduled to be deployed on October 21st. The project has done a great job with responding to the different challenges regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to the stay-at-home order, the team piloted teleworking and was able to successfully transition to a full-time telework model with no major issues or delays to the project. The transaction from, Commissioner Harrington talked a little bit about this already, and that's in regards to our transition on the training plan. So we transitioned to an online training module. This was a large shift for the project team, and the team did a fantastic job in creating this new web online modules. What this will do is this will allow the leadership teams for deputy registrars as well as dealerships to schedule training for their staff at their convenience on when it allows for them. Prior to this model, we were going to have classroom training where we carved out specific days that required individuals to be on site at training facilities. On the flip side, with taking this approach, we just need to make sure that we have all staff complete the training. So that discipline on making sure staff completes the training. But overall, this will be a very positive shift for us, as well as it allows new employees that join organization, whether it's DVS or deputy registrars, to have training modules to be able to reference for their onboarding. We work closely with our partners at the deputy registrar offices and have been able to work on verification of converted records, as well as remote testing. It's great to have as many individuals as possible in the new systems to see how it looks and operates. Next slide, Jordan, please. Customization. I'm pleased to say that since the last time we visited, the project has not completed customization to the FAST core system. We continue to complete site-specific site-specific configuration, and we are consistently updating and changing the number of DVS business process procedures to changes to create efficiencies for DVS as well as deputy registrars. Engagement of deputy registrars. The project has taken a proactive approach with the engagement of our partners with the deputy registrar offices. We have 4 deputy registrars that are working full-time directly on the project. We have Gay Smith from the South St. Paul office. She is an SME for the finance team. We have Colton Seisler from Inver Grove Heights, and he is an SME for the title and registration team. Jared O'Reilly from St. Paul as an SME for the conversion team, and Joe Hyder from Hennepin County as a subject matter expert for the dealers and inventory teams. We are leveraging different communication channels out to the deputy registrars on the work that is occurring on the project. In the DVS weekly updates, the different SMEs on the project provide updates and specific items that are impacting their business units that would add value to the deputy registrars. DVS Director Emma Corey has a bi-weekly webinar with deputy registrars, and during the webinars, I provide updates on the project and how we are progressing and talk about key items like testing and training. Organizational change management is a key component to the success of the project, and every 3 weeks, webinars are held that we call Minnesota Drive Minutes, and the updates are provided to the SME. The SMEs provide the updates to the deputy registrars that log into those, and we go over kind of the large changes that will be happening with our transition into Minnesota Drive. On the next slide here, testing. So we've had participation from 15 deputy registrar offices in remote testing. This helps with having multiple eyes on the system to confirm transactions are working correctly. If things are identified that are not working, development suggestions are created and the updates are tested by the team. A key component to the success of the project is the completion of testing by all users of the system. Like I mentioned in the response to the COVID-19, the project team has successfully pivoted to an online training module, and there are a lot of positives with this transition. However, I want to make sure to stress that we need to make sure staff completes the necessary training. FAST has a very mature and successful tiered training program, and the tiers we are going through the process now of. So we're in Tier 1, which is the core computer-based training, and we started these CBTs in June. Tier 2 will be starting here on September 14th, and this is the system fundamentals. Tier 3 will start in early October, end of September, early October, and is for job-specific functionality. and Tier 4 is a sandbox. This will allow users to play within the system, do mock transactions, and this will be going live end of September, early October as well. The project team has been fortunate to have Allie Quinn from the Minnesota Auto Dealers Association working on the project every Monday and Tuesday. This has been an excellent opportunity for the project team to leverage Allie's expertise to ensure the auto dealers' needs are being met. A specific communication plan for dealers has been developed and is being executed. Every month, the project hosts Minnesota Drive Minutes with dealerships to go over what's changing with the dealers and what the new system will look like. Allie does a great job facilitating these meetings as well as the other SMEs on the project. DVS also publishes a monthly newsletter and a project update is consistently provided in that monthly update. Risks, so our risk log. So we've already talked about some of these risks already. The first risk that we have listed here is COVID-19. And like I was mentioned, we've already talked about the impact COVID-19's had on the project. Surge of work, post-stay-at-home executive order. Offices continue to experience high demand, customer demand, and the impact of the project is to make sure staff is able to complete the necessary testing and training. Completion of testing cases. This is called out to make sure staff is completing test cases within the system to make sure the system is working appropriately as designed. Dealers, a major paradigm shift is occurring with the dealers to use the Minnesota Drive system instead of paper documents. Training. We talked about the transition from an online training to an online training module. And scanner deployment. And this is for the implementation of scanners. DVS has received one scanner that will be deployed. Scanners for each office will be deployed to the Deputy Registrar's office. So we'll have the Deputy Registrar liaisons visit each office to help assist with the installation of the scanner. The next slide here is the additional risks. So in total, we have 13. First item here is the managing the work in process. For the DVS, the focus for DVS is to have as many transactions completed in advance of the rollout as possible. Conversion. With conversion, we have specific team assigned to the focus on conversion records. Real ID is a risk, but has decreased with the extension of the Real ID requirement to October 1, 2021. With MinCore, we are automating the current manual processes. Electronic Vehicle Title Registration, EVTR, is a complex business process that has multiple stakeholders and has a lot of focus on from the project. In regards to on the MNLAR side, where we kind of struggled with EVTR. Decommissioning the MNLARs and legacy systems. And finally, the last risk that we have documented is scope creep. The next slide here is an overview of the payment schedule to FAST. Since the last time we visited, 2 payments have been made to FAST for a total of just over $8 million. On the next slide is an update on FastDS. With FastDS, we are going to complete a version upgrade when we roll out VTRS. This version upgrade will be from version 11 to version 12 of the FAST software. This will allow us to have both driver and vehicle solutions on the same version. During the COVID pandemic, a lot of really good work was completed by FAST and our partners at Minute. We successfully implemented a virtual lobby that allows customers to wait for their services outside of the DVS offices, as well as completed work on scheduling of appointments, extension of Real ID credentials, and online renewal of Class D licenses. Currently, the team is actively working on the development of online Class D knowledge exams. Last slide here is questions. Like I've mentioned throughout the presentation, the project team has been working in partnership with the Deputy Registrars, Auto Dealers Associations, and with FAST. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the VTRS project, and please don't hesitate to let me know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I do have one question, if I may. In terms of stakeholders, has there been any engagement from law enforcement during the course of this project?
Thank you, sir. Yes, there has been. We do monthly meetings with law enforcement. So we meet with St. Paul Police Federation, the Minneapolis Police Federation, the sheriffs, police chiefs, as well as BCA and State Patrol. So we do monthly engagement meetings with the law enforcement community.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Senator Yazinski.
Thanks, Senator Newman, or Chair. So my question goes back to, again, to these scanners. I brought it up before. Larger offices getting one scanner provided. We're pushing more and more costs. Our deputy registers are not getting fee increases. It's a concern of mine. One scanner, I believe, for a larger office is going to stop the productivity of these deputy registers' offices. So maybe Mr. Buna, you can comment on that. You've been through this before. It seems to me one scanner is not enough to be provided to these deputy registers.
Mr. Buna, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Newman and group. For the record, my name is Ken Buna. I'm associate partner with Fast Enterprises and the vendor project lead for this. In terms of scanning, we strongly encourage it. It permits any application, whether it's a vehicle application or a driver application, to be processed more quickly, less paper handling and less lost documents. In terms of providing scanners, I think we've seen about 40% of the offices that we visited had scanners, had multifunctional units anyhow, and they were just able to use those. In discussions with the deputy registrars and DVS, it was determined that each office would get one. That was a discussion between DVS and the deputy registrars. From my perspective, I would love it if there's 1 million scanners out there, but it's not my money. So the fact that offices can scan, the fact that the offices don't really have to if they don't want to, is an option for them. Quite honestly, I think that it's a cost reduction for the offices if they do scan, because they don't have to photocopy every document that is referring to where you live and your identity. So actually, I think that a lot of the deputy registrars are finding it actually a cheaper solution than not scanning. And I'm happy to have any of the DRs that are on this call here today, whether that's Ms. Smith, Mr. O'Reilly, Mr. Hyder, or Mr. Seisler, to kind of provide their input from that. Again, from my perspective, I'd love it if everyone had a scanner, but again, it's not my money.
Senator Yazinski, follow-up question.
Yeah, just if the deputy registers would comment to that again. I've seen mine in operation. A lot of times they have 3 or 4 different stations they're providing that. And if they're waiting for one scanner to do that with 3 or 4 stations or lines, and it just seems like we're putting, as I said before, my concerns, we're putting more and more costs on our deputy registers, which are private businesses. And I agree that they're more productive with the scanners. I think it's great. But I'm just concerned that the larger offices, maybe it's based on transaction counts or something, that it's either 1 for small offices and 2 for a medium and 3 for a large or something like that. So I'd like to hear from the deputy registers if we could.
Senator Yazinski, the deputy registrars are up next. Would it be okay if we held your question until we get to them?
Yep, that's fine.
All right, that's what we'll do then. Any other questions for the Department of Public Safety, Commissioner Harrington, or any of his staff? Okay, I'm not seeing any further questions. So Commissioner Harrington, thank you very much. Mr. Anderson, thank you for your presentation, and for the others who were available to answer any questions. Just want to extend our appreciation for that. Next up would be stakeholders, and first on the line would be deputy registrars. In particular, with respect to Senator Yazinski's question on scanners, I would recognize any deputy registrars that wish to speak at this time. I see Ms. Smith. Welcome, Ms. Smith. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we were very excited just to get one, but our hope was that it could go by size of office, but we do understand the budget constraints. It is a large strain on the deputy registrars, especially now in the COVID-19 and the restrictions we are having and the revenue loss that we are having. So we would love it if it would have gone by office sizes. but we understand the budget constraint, but it would have been a very good, positive move if we could have had more by size. It's just been amazing that we could at least get one. And I know there are several offices that are pushing for the scanning. Once they get those scanners, they are waiting for them in order to get online before rollout so they can be used to that. I know our office pushed for the scanning for the driver's services because it was a time saving, and with all the MNLAR's orphan documents, we did not want any of that to happen with our driving records. So that is why we really pushed for the document scanning.
I see that Mr. O'Reilly is, it looks like you wanted to speak. Mr. O'Reilly, did you want to speak specifically to the scanners or any other issues? I'd like to just clear up on the scanners first, if I could.
Yes, I would second what Gay is saying, that the office size would have been helpful to get more per office, with each office having different sizes, so we could minimize the wait time for the customers. So we have a big office and one scanner that's working. The customers has to wait until we can get in line to scan. So at my office, we've purchased plenty of scanners, but that was a cost of like almost $900 each unit. And the way that we're running right now is marginally thin with the cost of everything that we're doing. So I'm in favor for scanning, but to get scanners to more scanners per office that have higher transactions counts would have been nice.
Senator Yazinski, any follow-up or further questions regarding the scanners?
No, I think my point has been made. Again, more and more costs are being put down to our deputy registers. The fees have stayed the same. We're not doing increases. So I would like to see some kind of recommendation based on a transaction count, either small, medium, large, so somehow how we can look at that to see if that would be more equitable to our deputy registers. And with that, I'll end with that.
Thank you, Senator Yazinski. Mr. O'Reilly, do you have any other comments that you want to make insofar as the deputy registrars are concerned?
I'm just very pleased with how the project has gone so far. It feels like our voices have been heard by FAST, and they've been implemented into the building of the new system. And I think every deputy registrar is going to be very pleased with the rollout once we get into the new system.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Ms. Smith, did you have anything further on behalf of the deputy registrars? I didn't mean to cut you off before, so if you have anything further.
The only thing, Mr. Chair, would be that I'm feeling very confident on this rollout. I believe we were a pilot site on the early rollout for the driver's services, and having the staff of FAST backing us up and the staff of DVS, I think the rollout, there's no guarantee we're going to hit a few things here and there, but I'm feeling pretty confident with the staff that we're working with now on this project that we can really do well on the rollout. As long as we can get our deputy registrars and our dealers to do the training, because with this COVID, it is very tough right now. And being in that crisis and the revenue constraints that we're dealing with, I think that might be a little tough.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Are there any members that have any questions of the DRs? Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, I wondered if, since Mr. Hyder's on the line, if he has any comments as a deputy registrar, and I know he might have some comments about the dealer. I wanted to make sure he got in on the action.
Yeah, I am, Mr. King. I intend to ask for input from auto dealers, as soon as we're done with DRs. But Mr. Hyder, if I don't see you on here, but if you are on, you're more than welcome to Hyder, there you are.
Hi. No, I'd echo exactly what they said. I really don't have anything additional to add.
All right, thank you very much. Anything else from the members in terms of questions for the deputy registrars? I'm not seeing anything. Is there anyone on the meeting representing the auto dealers? They are, of course, an interested party. Or any other interested parties that wish to say anything at this point? Okay, I am not seeing anything. With that, I'd go to our final individual that I would request some information from, and that's Mr. King. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the summaries by folks covered the status very well. I would highlight a couple of things for the committee. It is no small feat to say the words on time and under budget. So I think I would say that again. That's a good thing. The second thing is that thank you to the DRs and the dealers. The engagement has been extremely high. And I think on the staff side, whether the agency side, they have involved them very well. So I think that's a terrific thing. Third item I would mention is that the road to success is always under construction. So projects like this always have rocks in the way and things like that. There's a very collaborative and cooperative problem solving group that deals with this DPS, DVS, Minute, FAST, the dealers, the DRs, and other people are engaged as they need to be. I've been very pleased with that. The fourth item I was going to mention, we've got two phases in this project, and I wondered if the OLA was going to go into this, but they talked a little bit about fiscal 22 budget. And frankly, what I think would be really interesting, because we know approximately what it's going to do to finish phase 2 of the project. The real issue is going to be what's next after that. How do you properly fund the maintenance and ongoing upgrading, not the big upgrades, but the enhancement of a software package that you bought from a third party. We flagged this early, and I think that's going to be something that's really important and could be something that this committee looks into in a future meeting. The fifth item was noted, I think, by Mr. Anderson, that the business process has changed a few times by DVS rather than the software changing. And I'll just call you back as an example. That, along with the collaboration on problem solving between the agencies, engagement of the DRs and dealers, was called out in the negative in the independent expert review of MNLARS. And what you're seeing in the team is a reversal of that and really good cooperation there. I'd also finally suggest that future topics to explore the self-service, as is indicated in some of the language that we have, is going to be really illustrative, because this software has brought a multitude of opportunities for self-service and also for increasing the redundancy of the systems. In summary, things are going very well. We want to keep them going well. I'm knocking on wood about that, but that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. King. And with respect to one item you brought up, you mentioned ongoing costs, maybe ongoing maintenance. What you're referring to there is something different from the question of the information needed for the 2022 budget. Is that correct?
That should be correct. Part of the 22 budget will be the completion of the project phase 2. Once that project phase 2 is done in October, the remaining of that budget will be just the ongoing care and feeding of the product running. I'm not worried about that part of the budget there, but as you go into the next fiscal years, we have to properly figure out how to allocate the right amount of funds for fast upgrades and things like that, technology refreshes, just like you would with any type of project, but this one will be held by a third party. And I think it will be a breakthrough set of thinking about how we do that with ongoing technology projects.
And Mr. King, from a legislative standpoint, when would you think the members of the legislature ought to begin thinking about this topic of ongoing maintenance?
I think in the preparation of the 2022 budget, it certainly should begin to be thought through. There's ways I think that it's not that complicated to do, but it just needs to be attended to. I think it will set up a model for other projects. I think the 23 budget, the fiscal 23 budget, will be entirely composed of those things that are required to maintain it. So maybe some easing in 22 and questions about it, but then 23 formally.
Thank you, Mr. King. Any members have any questions of Mr. King at this time? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'm going to come back to Chair Hornstein, but any members of the committee have any comments or any statements that they wish to make? I think we're winding down now, so anything that anyone would want to speak to? Mr. King.
Thank you, Senator. The one thing that I'll make an observation about, and I want to do it with great respect, I know that the deputy registrars have been through a huge amount of turbulence with the experiences through MNLARS and all of that, and I so appreciate the way they've worked through that problem, and I know that has created a huge amount of extra work for them. For the ones that are involved in more of the routine transactions, when they get the release completed in November of this year here, I think we'll be able to level set the type of workloads that they see on a steady state basis. Obviously, it depends on where we are with COVID at that time, but that's November of 2020. If the deputy registrars are involved with a lot of the international trucking regulations that don't come out until October of 21, then I think the steady state for those DRs is going to be a little bit after that release. But as we really don't know, is the long-term more work for the deputy registrars once we get through this new software and over the hump and MNLARS is retired, or is it not? And I think we need to consider the time to really evaluate that is when we know that they're running successfully under the new system in either of those two dates. And I only say that because I'm very sensitive to what Senator Jasinski said. I heard that during all my visits to the DR when we were doing the independent review. And I think that anything that we collect in the past up through the release is going to be colored by some of the things that they're actually doing today, which is running two systems rather than running the one new system.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments, Mr. King. I do not believe that we have any members that have raised their hands. So at this point, I'd go to Chair Hornstein. You have any final comments?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for doing a great job chairing and everyone that participated in the meeting. It's no secret that it's been a very challenging time for everybody, particularly this summer in government and public life and the community. And I think today was a nice example of some good news and things working well. And I think it's the work of the Department of Public Safety and Driver and Vehicle Services and FAST. Mr. King, I want to thank you again. You've just been such an invaluable partner for all of us from day one in this process. And I'm so glad we passed legislation that allows you to continue on as a member of this committee. And I would just say, Mr. Chair, I would anticipate that perhaps we could have one more meeting before the end of the calendar year. We could go over the September report and potentially preview. I would like to sort of, for those that have an interest in VTRS that are on this call or in this meeting, is there legislation? Of course, we don't have to solve every problem through legislation or every issue through legislation. But if there is something that is useful, that is valuable, we'd like to know about it. I think on a bipartisan basis, the members of the committee would like to hear from you. I know Representative Elkins does have a bill to address some of the needs of the deputy registrars. I know Senator Jasinski has been, such a close ally of the DRs. And so, if there are some issues, related to that we can work on, it's not too early. I mean, I think the end of the year is going to come upon us pretty quickly. And then of course we have session. So I just wanted to put out a call for ideas if people feel that there are some additional kinds of things we can do legislatively to assist in this process. But I'm very pleased, Mr. Chairman, with how things are progressing. Also appreciate the role that the legislative auditor is playing as well. So again, it's my thought that we'll huddle on this, but potentially one more meeting before session or early in the next year, early in session, we could have another meeting. But thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for chairing, and I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Chair Ornstein. And the answer is yes. I certainly think that we can have another Oversight Committee hearing before the end of the year. We, of course, will wait for that September report to come out, and then you and I will get together and decide when to schedule it. But I see no reason why we should not have another Oversight Committee hearing. Regarding proposed legislation, I would invite all the members, the stakeholders, Department of Public Safety, Minute, anyone who has got ideas or suggestions. So maybe FAST has got some suggestions. If you wouldn't mind floating them by us, that is really, really very helpful to kind of get a heads up. We as legislators are playing in your bailiwick, and we're not exactly experts in it. So we'd appreciate any help that you can give us. And with that, I want to thank everybody that's involved. FAST, the Office of Legislative Auditor, DPS, Minute, and those who are working for them. This is truly one of the most pleasant meetings that I've had recently. It's kind of, and I see Representative Carlson smiling. It's kind of nice to have some good news for a change. And this particular report I have taken as being very, very good news. So again, thanks to all who are working on this project. We've worked on it pretty hard for a number of years now, and I think it's really coming to fruition. And it just is, it's kind of a bright spot for us, is it not? So with that, again, thanks to everyone, and we are now adjourned.